Ego's over here. Your higher self, your consciousness, God, your eternal part lives forever. That's the part we can connect with Grayson and forgive yourself. Forgive and let soften the ego a little bit. Love the ego.
Today's episode of I Love Being Sober, I'm joined by Todd Belfer, who has a powerful story of transformation and healing to share. Todd has been clean and sober for 25 years, overcoming struggles with drugs and alcohol. Tragically, a little over a year ago, he faced the profound challenge of his son's death, an event that led him to explore psychedelics, a realm he was once firmly against. Today, Todd advocates for the therapeutic potential of psychedelics in recovery, sharing how they've profoundly impacted his life without leading to a relapse. Join us as we delve into the complex interplay between addiction recovery and psychedelic therapy. Todd, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
And Todd and I, we've known each other for quite some time. We met when I first got clean and sober.
How many years ago? 2011?
2011. My sobriety date is 2011, March 8th, 2011. Okay. And you were I had a sponsor for a few months, and then you and I connected, and you were my sponsor for 7 years.
And your tenant.
And you were, yes. And it's like, it's such a small world, and everything happens exactly the way that it's supposed to. And Todd ended up renting one of my homes, and yeah,
we loved that home too.
Yeah, it was such a great home, and like you yeah, there's a lot of little things that happened early on in my sobriety. I mean, throughout my life, but it's like I first I had a home. I'm not even going to go into the story right now because it's going to take us into a little rabbit hole. But I'm grateful that you're here, grateful that you're open and willing to share your story. And the goal of this is just to share and share your experience with recovery, psychedelics, and how they've helped you. Because I know that you were once against. I mean, abstinence was your jam for over 20 years.
Yeah,
and you were the guy that was saying no way to any sort of a psychedelic because you and a lot of other people think that psychedelics are doing drugs. How can you treat a drug with a drug?
No question.
So we're going to dig into that, and I'm really I'm excited about this conversation.
Yeah.
So, Todd, can you share a bit about your journey to sobriety and what the last 25 years have been like for you as a sober man?
Absolutely. So I was married at 30 years old. Actually, at 28 years old, I was married, and I was drinking 4 or 5 days a week, and I really married my drinking buddy. She was. Worked at my favorite bar, the Merc Bar, and I just married someone that was fun. That we traveled, we drank together, and then she got pregnant. She got pregnant with Grayson after we got married, and she started looking at me differently, going, "God, you're just a train wreck." Like, right. Who are you?
Right.
Who are you? You're like this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You're two different people. And I'm like, oh, you're just, you're boring because you're pregnant. You're not drinking. Like, I just poo-pooed it. And she finally got to the point after like a year of trying to do controlled drinking, a year of therapy. She's like, I just don't believe you anymore. I'm sick of the sorries. I'm sick of the apologies. I'm out. Like, I'm out. And she was moving out. She was 7 months pregnant. And I'm like, hold on. I'm going to get sober. I'm going to go to AA. And then I ended up going to AA, and I was just going to hang out for a couple of weeks there, get her off my back. And that first meeting, I just cried like a baby, and I just knew the gig was up. Like the double life, the triple life, like it was over. And I just felt a sense of relief. I felt a sense of belonging. I felt like, holy shit, crying actually feels good. Like, I just loved it. And I just wanted to go back the next day, and I got some phone numbers. And the first meeting I went to was Prince of Peace, January 15th, 1999. And the guy I saw there was my arch nemesis in business, Michael McDermott. I don't know if you know Michael.
No, I remember Michael. Okay. Yeah, I remember him from early on in sobriety.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he moved to Minnesota, but he was a friend, but he was like a frenemy. He was like my arch nemesis in business. He owned Kona Grill at the time. I owned Raw Sushi. And so like we were competitors, but like I saw him in that first meeting and I was embarrassed and I was mortified. I'm like, oh my God, like he's seeing me here. But what I forgot was that he's there too, you know, but he gave me his phone number. He's like, call me every day, you know, and I'm like, why? You know, like I didn't understand the AA protocol, you know, like, you know, because I was so guarded and like didn't want anyone to know. I was sweating bullets when I walked in that first meeting. And slowly but surely, like I started to let my guard down just a little bit each meeting. I wouldn't get a sponsor. You know, I wasn't going to work the steps. I had a hard enough time just saying I was an alcoholic. Like that was so much shame and just like, holy cow, like I'm an alcoholic. Like, and I told my wife at the time, Julie, I said, do not tell anybody that I'm sober. Do not tell anyone I'm in AA. I will absolutely crucify if you tell anybody that I'm in AA and I'm sober. I was just going to keep it down real low, the secret the rest of my life. And, you know, that doesn't work. I was in so much pain. But slowly I got comfortable in my own skin. I mourned the loss of my alcoholic life for probably the first year of my sobriety. I was on the couch crying that first few weeks. Right. Like, my life's over. I'm never going to enjoy life again. Yeah. My friends, you know, my friends are calling me to go out. I'm like, I don't even answer the phone. And I was really in a depression. I was really sad. I mourned probably for a good 30 days straight. But then I would go to the meetings and I would get some relief. You know, I would see the guys there. I would see the speaker. I would feel a little bit of love. And so it was like that balance between mourning the loss of who I am and everything about me. My best friend was alcohol. I couldn't do anything without drinking. Right. Any social situation. I could never date without alcohol. And then all of a sudden now I'm like thrown into this room where I feel a lot of shame and remorse and like just self-criticism. So it took me a while to start getting comfortable with that whole dynamic. And I did, you know, meet some friends in AA. My good friend from college was sober, so that really helped because he took me to meetings. Michael started the meeting at my house on Tuesdays, so that really helped. But overall, I would say...
Did Michael end up being your sponsor?
No.
For a little bit?
No. My first sponsor, I think his name was Peter. He actually went out in the first few months when he was sponsoring me. So and then I asked a guy named Mike Levesque to sponsor me. Okay. And he was my sponsor for 15 years, probably. So, but, you know, I started to do the steps. I started to get a service commitment. And it was like I slowly started to accept that this is my new life, that I'm alcoholic, that I am not going to drink anymore. And I slowly started doing the work. But I was definitely a slow AA attendee. Like I wasn't one of those guys that jumped in, pink cloud, do the steps. Yeah, rah, rah, rah. I was like, okay, I'm going to tread very lightly here, you know.
How long before you actually started telling people that you were in AA and that you were sober?
Oh, I don't think I mean, I told my family, but I mean, I didn't tell my business partners for a year.
Okay. And
that made it worse.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Did that make it worse for you?
Like my partners at Raw, we would go look at sites around the country and go, you know, and they'd be like, hey, what do you want to drink? And I'd be like, oh, I'm just give me a water. Why? What's up? Yeah. Like, oh, I'm just not drinking right now. Like I was mortified and ashamed to tell them I was in AA. I wasn't drinking anymore. Right. They laugh now. They're like, yeah, you didn't tell us for like 2 years. Right. I'm like, yeah, year to 2 years. But I just didn't want anybody to know. Right. Because in my mind, I was this big business guy and like I had this image. And I just didn't want anyone to know. But the relief comes in disclosure and being honest and letting everybody know. Like once I let everybody know after, let's just say a couple years, it was like such freedom.
Yeah. I mean, I was the opposite. I let everybody know, and it made it so much easier. I wasn't hiding.
Right.
Because, you know,
I
it's
was
like
still hiding.
It's like AA is a program of honesty. And here I am, like I learned to be honest, and I just learned that it was a lot easier that way.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine, because there's a lot of other people out there that don't want people to know that they're sober, and it just makes it harder.
It makes it harder. I don't recommend doing what I do by any means. I mean, I was going to cocktail parties, dinners, social happy hours for business, and dressing up my drink.
Right.
Like with a twist and just soda water, but it looked like a vodka soda.
Right.
You know, with the short glass, the twist, and everybody would ask me what I was drinking. I would say vodka soda. Mm-hmm. I was lying.
Right.
But I was sober.
Right.
Because I didn't want anyone to know that I was sober. So I would say I white knuckled it for a good year, but was still going to meetings, still calling guys. So like I was living both sides of the street.
Right.
But it was uncomfortable. I'd have the pink cloud over here, like, and that goes into the whole codependency shit.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to please and impress people in the AA community at meetings, but also my drinking buddies.
Right,
you know, like I was on both sides.
Right.
Very uncomfortable.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
So, can you walk us through the events leading up to your decision to try psychedelics, and especially after your son's passing? Yeah.
So, I would, like you said in the beginning of this interview, I was a staunch believer in sobriety at all costs.
Right.
No pills, no psychedelics, nothing to change their state of mind. Mm-hmm. And I used to have sponsees who are like, well, I'm going to try this, try that. I'm like, well, don't do it. Like absolutely complete abstinence from anything that changes the way you feel, changes your mind. And after Grayson passed, December 16th, I was in so much pain. It was like a surreal experience. Like I actually don't even remember really any of that, but I just know it was such a surreal experience. And Julie, my ex-wife, was doing psychedelic journeys for about 2 years before Grayson passed.
Okay.
So she was doing these psychedelic journeys for people, MDMA and ketamine.
Okay.
I mean, MDMA and ketamine journeys. And I was very against it. You know, but she saw how much pain I was in. I mean, she did a journey the night he passed. Herself.
Okay.
And she said she connected with him. She was holding his hand. She goes, it was the most healing thing in a time of such trauma and pain. And she, after a couple of weeks, she's like, Todd, you might want to try this. I'm like, I don't think I can. I'm breaking my sobriety. Like the one thing I have left is my sobriety.
Right.
And eventually I called her and I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready.
Okay.
And so I went over there and I did it. I did a journey with her and it lasted about 5 hours and I connected with Gray. It was, you know, the MDMA is such a loving, healing. I don't know if you've ever tried that in a psychedelic like experience,
right?
Like not in a party experience,
right?
It's such a loving, healing, warm blanket, and I connected with Grayson completely, and it was a beautiful experience, and it gave me a little bit of relief. Okay. I mean, I wouldn't say like I was out of the trauma and the pain, but like I felt some relief. I felt some love. I felt connected to him, and I'm like, okay.
Well, I think with with MDMA, my understanding is that you're able to go to a place, be it a traumatic event like the passing of your son, you're able to just connect and go to a place. I don't know if I'm describing this correctly, but you're able to get to a place that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get to because you're so traumatized that there's the fight, flight, or freeze. So you're not able to really, truly experience the trauma and work through the trauma. Which,
Right.
and I don't know if that's a decent description of it.
I agree. I mean, you kind of release the trauma for a minute and you focus on the connectiveness and the love. And it's really like I'm leaving kind of my ego and my pain over here in the car. And then I walk into this journey and it's me and Grayson connecting on a spiritual, like, consciousness level. And it's so loving. I mean, you don't want to come back. It's like you're just connected to the spirit with me and him. And I don't want to come back to my body. It's such a beautiful experience. Okay. And the trauma and the pain and the PTSD and all that is like kind of checked in the car and stays there while you're doing this experience. Right. So I do highly recommend it for grief and trauma. I have a couple good friends that are vets that have done it and said it's just a game changer.
Hey, would you say that forgiveness is part of that MDMA journey as well?
Eventually, the first one, I wouldn't say as much. It was just feeling the love and connecting with him and having him show me like, it's okay. I'm still here. I'm not gone. Mm-hmm. And then it became forgiving myself because there's so much blame as a parent. Like it's my fault. Right. And Julie was actually pretty good with forgiving herself. He called her like an hour before he passed, and she felt guilty for not answering the phone. And like for me, it was really hard and still hard, but it's better. Mm-hmm. It's better. Right. But I still the ego says it's my job to make sure my kids are safe and succeed and excel in life. Like my ego is very, very strong, hardwired in that belief. Mm-hmm. Other parents are like, no, you raise them till they're 18 and then they're on their own. Right. My belief is no, and that's because I think my parents, especially my mom, was very controlling and very myopic in my life. Mm-hmm. And so like I had that belief like, no, it's my job to make sure my kids are healthy, they are fed, they have shelter, they're happy. Like that's my job, no matter what. Right. It doesn't matter what age they are. So I had that belief. So like my ego's like, you fucked up, man. You really screwed up. Right. And that causes pain, that causes suffering, that causes a lot of shame, a lot of like sleepless nights, and just running the tape.
Regret, depression.
And the ego's still trying to solve it. Mm-hmm. Like there's nothing to solve. He passed. Right. But my ego's like, okay, we can get him in rehab. We can go do this. We can do that. We can do all this stuff, but there's nothing to do. Right. Like the event happened and I can't change it. But my ego still thinks it could change the event, go back in time and change it. Right. And that's the struggle. And that's where psychedelics, ketamine, MDMA, that's where they really, really help in separating that. And realizing, okay, the ego's over here, your higher self, your consciousness, God, your eternal part lives forever. That's the part we can connect with Grayson and forgive yourself. Forgive and soften the ego a little bit. Love the ego.
I think that's one of the biggest things that I know about psychedelics is that it's ego death, ego liberation, putting the ego aside. Really, that's a big thing that happens with the psychedelic journey.
No question.
Right.
Yeah. My ego is like, wants to run the show, control it. Right. And the ego was like, don't do the psychedelics, don't do it. Right. Because it's going to kind of emasculate who we are. And like, we're running the show here. And I think the ego knows psychedelics might interfere with that, being the bully in the body of Todd. Yeah. And now I clearly see it through many, many journeys and many meditations and hypnotherapy. Right. I mean, one of the most profound experiences I ever had about a year ago was through hypnotherapy. I did 2 sessions and I completely connected with Gray, but also connected with God. And in my hypnotherapy session, about 3.5 hours into it, I was with God in spirit and did not want to come back. And I'm on tape saying, please let me stay here. Please let me stay here. And the hypnotherapist, her name was Gila, she's like, just breathe. It's okay. But I did not want to come back. It was such a euphoric, loving feeling. that I did not want to come back.
Right.
And that was with no psychedelics.
Right.
That was just hypnotherapy.
Do you think you connected with the psychedelics that you had done previously during that hypnotherapy session?
I think it helped.
Right.
I think it helped separate my ego from my body.
Right.
In fact, when I was coming back in, when she guided me back into my body, I had such pain in my sternum and stomach of coming back into my body that I'm like, you need to call. I actually said this on tape, like, you need to call 911 because I'm feeling a massive pain right here.
Wow.
And that's when I was coming back into my body.
Okay.
And now that I look back upon it, it's like I actually left.
Right.
You know, my spirit left my body, had this experience, which was wonderful and miraculous, and then came back in, and I had physical pain coming back in. You know?
So I was just thinking, so I saw you at the psychedelic conference in Phoenix, and there was a guy that spoke. I forgot his name. I think he was the owner of an Ibogaine clinic, and I think he was the perfect example of someone that didn't have an ego in the way that he showed up and the way that he talked about his clinic and the way that he talked about Ibogaine. He was just there to share. He said, hey, I'm just here to share. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm not here to try to get anybody to do anything. I'm just here to share my experience, and that's it. And it just the whole energy that he brought to the stage was such a good example of somebody that he wasn't powered by his ego. And I think about psychedelics versus drugs and alcohol and cocaine. It's like when people are trying to get you to do drugs and alcohol and cocaine, it's almost like their ego is trying to get you to partake. Whereas with psychedelics, my experience is it's never someone's ego that's trying to get me to try out a psychedelic. It's more so like you don't get peer pressured into doing psychedelics.
Right.
Like with Julie and with you, it was, hey, you know, I've got this thing and it's really helped me and it's available to you if you ever want to try it.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that. I was the guy when I was drinking and drugging that if you weren't partaking in what I was doing, I literally made you leave. Like if it was at my house or we were at a club or whatever, like if you're not partaking in my drinking and drugging, I actually want you to leave. Right. Because I'm uncomfortable. You know, these psychedelic journeys, every single one I've ever done, I have a mask on, I'm by myself. I have a facilitator, you know, whether it be an MD at Advanced Wellness or Julie or whoever, I have a facilitator. And I am going within. It is me and God, and now Grayson. Like it's not a party scene. I'm not trying to peer pressure. It is literally trying to, like you said, separate the ego from my true self and have this incredible experience. And I don't think people you can't compare it. Like my old belief system of like, don't do psychedelics. It'll screw up your sobriety. You will absolutely, you know, like I have some really good friends in AA who say, Todd, I'm just telling you, you're going to be doing crack and meth in a matter of no time. They truly believe that. Like they're not just saying it, like they believe it. They say that's a gateway drug. Psychedelics are a gateway to you relapsing. And I can wholeheartedly say that is absolutely not true. First of all, when I get done with a long psychedelic journey, the last thing on my mind is I want to do that again right now. I'm exhausted. I need to like kind of digest what just happened emotionally, spiritually, physically. And it just like I don't want to do it for like at least another month or so. You know? So to say that it's addicting, like I don't know about that, but.
Well, I think with drugs and alcohol, I mean traditional drugs, you're numbing out. It's the solution to the pain, and you're chasing this high because you want to feel good. Whereas with a psychedelic, you're connecting with your feelings. And what I've heard from you so far is that the journeys have been beautiful, but they're not always beautiful.
No, I had my second ketamine session. I was screaming. I shared this last night, actually, with somebody. I was screaming at the top of my lungs. I'm done. I'm done. And I wasn't done with the session, but in my journey, I was done with trying to control everything in my life. I need to bring Grayson back. I fucked up my marriage. Like I just, you know, I screwed up some business relationships, and it was all this shame and all this guilt and all this self-deprecating thoughts and beating the shit out of myself. And it like sped it up and just emphasized it in the journey.
Right.
And I just was like, I'm fucking done. I'm fucking done. I'm done.
Right.
And I'm screaming. And they came running in and they interrupted and stopped the session. And they're like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm okay. I'm okay. Let me just give me a minute, you know. But they actually stopped it because they were worried, like something was going on beyond. So they actually stopped that session about 45 minutes into it.
Wow.
So I was almost done with it anyway. But it was a profound experience of showing from childhood to like current all this shame and guilt and pain that I've caused myself.
Right.
I mean, you could say it was the events, but I'm the one creating these thoughts and shame.
Right.
And it showed me that clearly. And it's like I just was screaming, I'm done in the journey. Like I want to let it go. I just want to release it.
Right.
And just live in the moment and the beauty of this human experience.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So
you were initially against the use of psychedelics. What were some of your concerns and what changed your perspective? We already kind of talked about this. Is there anything that you left out?
I mean, I would say why I was against it was kind of like, that's what you're supposed to say. When you're 25 years sober,
right.
You're supposed to say you're against any mind-altering substance, period.
Right.
It's like you're a parrot. Like a lot of people in AA are parrots. They just regurgitate what they hear in meetings.
Right.
You know? But yeah, I was completely against it. I completely would encourage everyone to not try psychedelics. And now I'm sort of the opposite. I'm on podcasts talking about how psychedelics saved my life and gave me peace and gave me like comfort and gave me, I can get out of bed every morning and be excited. So without psychedelics, I don't know where I'd be today, you know, after the trauma that I experienced.
Right. Well, MDMA is known to be helpful for people with severe PTSD, vets, and so forth, and your experience that you had to deal with. Now, your first experience was just MDMA or MDMA and ketamine?
It was just MDMA.
Okay.
Now, when I go do experiences with MDMA, I mix it with ketamine.
Okay. Do you do them at the same time?
No.
Okay. 2.5
hours, 3 hours of just MDMA.
Okay.
And then the last couple hours with ketamine.
Okay. And why?
I guess why? Because Julie recommended it, but also because I think it gave me a more visual experience and an extended period.
Okay.
So it's like the MDMA kind of wears off, but then the ketamine kind of extends it a little bit more, and it becomes much more visual.
Okay.
Much more visual.
Okay. And is there anything else that you've experienced besides MDMA and ketamine?
I did do a psilocybin journey, and I would say that wasn't as profound for me as ketamine and MDMA.
Okay.
But I've heard other people have had pretty profound psilocybin journeys on hero doses.
Right.
I just haven't got there or done that yet.
Okay.
So, but I do want to try ayahuasca. You know, my wife has done 9 sessions of ayahuasca and had some incredibly painful, very painful ayahuasca experiences, but then she's had some incredibly beautiful.
Right.
So
yeah, and that's what I've heard, whether it's ayahuasca, LSD. I mean, shoot, Bill W. did LSD.
Right.
I mean, that was like, for me, it was, because like you, I was completely against psychedelics for my first 10 years of sobriety. And then all of this evidence that supports the use of psychedelics for recovery, depression, PTSD, anxiety, like all of these things. And then other people were speaking out about it. And then I watched Michael Pollan's documentary, How to Change Your Mind.
How to Change Your Mind. Yeah.
And he talks about how Bill W., like his spiritual awakening came as a result of doing LSD. Psychedelics. And that was eye-opening for me. And I was like, whoa, okay, well, I mean, and then my experience and what I know about it and what I've heard about it is that it's just more a way to, again, get your ego aside, push your ego aside, liberation, become free, and then also to truly experience some of the things that you need to experience. And it gets you more in touch with your feelings. As again, going back to the drugs and alcohol is the solution to the pain. It's
You're numbing out there.
You're numbing out. And then the psychedelics bring you closer to your feelings, so you actually feel.
Yeah.
And it's not always good.
Right. No,
it's not always fun.
It's bringing, I mean, for me, all of the shame, blame, control, all of the pain in the ego, it brings it to the surface.
Right.
And almost speeds it up and exasperates it to where it's like, oh my God, I can't take this.
Right.
But you know, people say, well, it's a dissociative, but it's the same thing as alcohol and drugs did to you. I'm like, well, no, it's not numbing me. It's a dissociative. Mm-hmm. But in my interpretation, a dissociative is putting the ego over here and showing my spirit, my true self here. You know, I mean, I used to like hear these things. I grew up Jewish and God was an external being. You do enough psychedelics, you absolutely believe that you are eternal. Like there is no question in anyone's mind that does a lot of psychedelics and in an experience like this spiritual way we're talking. They 100% believe that they're not just this body and this ego, that they are eternal. And you see that in psychedelics.
Right.
So that's a belief I didn't have before. I just believe, I guess, when I die, I die. Like, that's it.
Right.
And now I know I'm eternal. And being able to connect with your son, you know, is something that no parent should have to go through. But if they do, it is a type of healing and connection and continuation of that relationship.
I've heard you say that you're closer to Gray than you've ever been. So explain that.
I mean, Gray and I could never have the conversations that we have today.
Okay.
I mean, we have conversations of vulnerability, of love, of, you know, I mean, he's the reason I put this tattoo on, forgiveness, love, and kindness. Like, he kept telling me, Dad, forgiveness, love, and kindness. Please, Dad, to yourself.
Right.
And Gray and I never would talk like that before. Like, I mean, he was very guarded, you know, he was funny, but in body, he hid all his fears and all his anxiety and all that stuff. He hid it. He acted on the outside like he's this fun, goofy, cool guy, but he hid all the fears and insecurities. And I did too, until I came in AA. Right. And started doing the steps and started opening up and crying. But he hid it. And now that ego's gone, like it is all just beautiful and vulnerable and intimate and like having conversations like, Dad, be easy on yourself. Right. Like, I mean, I probably dream about Gray. I mean, I don't know how many days it's been, but call it 400 days since he passed, you know. 500 days. Like, I probably dream about Gray 50% of my dreams. Wow. And he's in there and he's talking to me. On every psychedelic journey, he's been very, very present. Right. But he sends me a lot of healing, a lot of love. Like, don't be so hard on yourself, you know, love yourself. It's not your fault. Like, I don't want you to like end your life early because you feel the shame and pain from thinking you had something to do with this. And I believe this was all curated before Gray and I were even born. Like, I believe, like, in the soul world and the spirit world, like we come up with different ways to experience hardships in the human body to get through them. Right. And to excel past that, to realize that, you know, like Jesus, like through his whole story, it's like, I believe we go through these hard times because these were curated before we came in a body, and then we go into a reincarnation of another body and then deal with some other things. Right. You know, it's the human experience. I do believe we are spiritual beings first and foremost, then having a human experience.
Gotcha. Now, I can say that I learned intimacy in AA. I mean, I used to think that sex was intimacy, which sexual intimacy is a type of intimacy, but I really learned intimacy and vulnerability by being in AA. And I think you were probably the first man that I ever had like an intimate relationship with. And again, that means vulnerability. That means connecting. I mean, I learned how to cry in front of other men. And so doing psychedelics, what do you think that has done for your ability to connect on an intimate level with other people.
It increases it and enhances it. I've cried like a baby in some psychedelic journeys. I mean, I've like taken off the mask and like realized, oh my God, I've cried for like hours.
Right.
You know, so I think it does, like you said, bring the emotion and bring all of that to the surface. But it allows me to connect at a deep, deep visceral level. Like I am such an open book with other men, women, and I have nothing to hide. And I am very good at identifying and sharing my feelings today. Right. Where before I was kind of like Gray, like there's nothing to share. How you doing? I'm good.
Right.
You know, I'm good. Even though I'm bawling inside and crying.
Yeah.
It's getting that out and putting words to it and putting another person. It's like doing the step work, like putting other people in that room with you and having them love you until I can love myself. So it's like getting that out there. I'm scared. I'm afraid. I don't think I can go on. Like what's putting words to it and then having other people love me until I can start loving myself.
Yeah.
And it took me a little while after Gray passed to like, you know, really start to love myself again, you know, and there's still days where I go back and like, no, it's my fault. I fucked up.
Yep.
I'm a piece of shit. And then I start to put my arms around myself. He plays me this is a crazy story. So in one of my journeys, Julie has a random playlist. She likes to just do random because, you know, she believes Grayson has part of the experience of picking the music.
Okay.
So she does like spiritual random on Spotify.
Okay.
And one of the songs that came on that really spoke to me is called Hold Yourself. And, you know, hold yourself. And it's like, hold yourself here, hold yourself near, like love yourself. And we looked at who the song was by, and it was Jai something plus Grayson.
Wow.
And it's like, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, come on,
really? Yeah.
You know, I mean, we were looking for a chair for Bond for his new office at his house. And we just Googled old world office chairs. We clicked on a site. The name of the site, Grayson's Living. I mean, we see this shit literally every week.
Yeah.
So to say that he's not here with us is absurd. Absurd.
Right.
And I get that connection through the psychedelic journeys and now without psychedelic, you know, experiences. But the psychedelics really helped me get on that road. Opened me up.
Right. In what ways do you feel psychedelics have helped you deal with your grief? And have there been specific moments or insights that were particularly impactful?
I mean, clearly in the beginning, I mean, I was so paralyzed. I mean, I literally just sat on the couch, you know, taking Xanax just to get through the day because like I didn't want to go on. And then the psychedelics opened me up to where, okay, A, Gray's still here. He's still alive. He's still with us. And B, you're going to be okay. I mean, it gave me such confidence that I'm going to be okay, that love is still here. Life is still worth living. And the psychedelics opened me up to seeing that and sharing that and getting in touch with my feelings more. Like that song, like I just was able to hold myself. Yeah. Where before the psychedelics, I wasn't able to hold myself. It was so much sadness and shame and guilt and regret. But you know, the psychedelics, like, okay, let's put all that aside and let's just love you, Todd. And,
so
you know,
once Grayson passed, before you did your first journey, do you feel like part of you was white knuckling it for a minute?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, I was just trying to get to the pillow. Yeah. And there's some days today I'm just trying to get to the pillow, but it's a lot better than it was then. But, you know, I was like, I mean, I was a zombie. It was a surreal experience.
I was going to say, was that even sustainable?
No, something had to give. Something had to give. And that's why, you know, if you look at the stats, people that lose kids at a young age, their suicide rate is like 10 times what the average adult is.
Right.
You know, it was something like 100. I was like 10 times the average suicide rate for males between 50 and 60 that have lost young kids, young adults. It just goes skyrockets and hockey sticks because there's so much pain.
I can imagine.
You know, I mean, like when I read the, what was her name? The singer, the shaved head she killed herself last year.
Oh, not Britney Spears.
No.
I don't remember.
Anyway, her son took his life, and a year later, she took her life. And I was reading the story on it, and I'm like, I completely get it. I completely get it.
Right. So you've mentioned that you don't believe that psychedelics lead to a relapse. Can you explain why you think they can be safe and beneficial for those in recovery?
Well, first, I don't recommend it for anyone who's new in recovery. So let's just state that, because, it's a blanket statement to say psychedelics are great for people in recovery. But I would say, this is just my opinion. I think you need a couple years under your belt, do the steps, not have that obsession and the obsession of alcohol and drugs still in you. Because the first 2 years, I wanted to do drugs and alcohol badly. In sobriety. I think that obsession has to leave before you even entertain psychedelics. The second thing is, I think psychedelics should be done in a place. I mean, you got to look back to why we drank and did drugs in the first place. And it says in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, alcohol was not the problem. Right. It was a symptom of the problem. But the real problem is I lived in fear my whole life. Okay. And it says 100 forms of fear. Right. And I did. I lived in fear my whole life. Grayson lived in fear. Most human beings live in fear. And alcohol happened to be our choice to give us some relief. Right. And I believe that psychedelics open us up to those fears like we talked about. It brings those fears to the surface. Doing step work is great. Listing who harmed you, what happened, who it affected, and what's your part in it. That's all great. And it lists a lot of those fears in there. And doing a fears inventory is wonderful. But psychedelics is a whole nother level of doing that step work in a condensed period and feeling it at a physical, emotional, spiritual level, like feeling it. And I think it's just like, it's like doing the steps in a psychedelic way, you know? So I'm a huge believer in doing it, but doing it in a way where you disclose it. You don't hide it. You tell your sponsor about it. You do it under professional care, whether that's with an MD or a professional who does psychedelics. I don't think you go to the street and go get ketamine or something. Like you do it.
Go get a bag of mushrooms and go to a concert.
Yeah, I think you do it in a way that it's an internal journey to expand who you are and your belief in yourself and your eternal part of yourself. So it will change. I think it will change everyone. It'll change who they think they are and what life means to them. Because I know before I started psychedelics and to now, the way I view myself and life has completely changed. I think I'm much calmer. I think I'm much more in touch with being in the moment. I think I'm done trying to be this flashy, impressive guy. And people that know me say there's something different about you. And it's not just grace and passing. There's something else that's changed and shifted. So
how does a person know when they're ready? A person that's early on in recovery, because I agree with you, someone that's early on in recovery, I don't know if it's the best choice for them. How does a person know when they're ready to go down that explore?
I think the first thing is to start talking about it. If they think they're ready, start talking to guys like you and me and Julie and Dr. Latham and other people. Start talking about it. And maybe after some discussion and internal dialogue, maybe they're not ready. But the only person who can make that decision is that person. No matter what people tell them, they have to make that decision. And I think there's some people that probably are ready at 2 or 3 years, and there's other people that probably aren't ready. So it's an individual case.
It's like, when are you called to it?
When are you called to it? My wife was sober 8 years and very active in AA and sponsored tons of women. She's not in AA anymore. She drinks. I don't think alcohol was ever her issue. I think it was eating disorder. She came in AA because she was codependent and wanted to be part of a group. But, it's funny because so many people in AA are like, how's Alex? Is she okay? I'm like, she's never been better. She has never been better. She is her truest, purest, happiest self she's ever been. I see it clearly. All her friends see it clearly. All her family sees it clearly. But the people in AA are like, oh, she went out. She okay?
Right.
Like, yeah, she's great.
Right.
You know?
Right.
She's done 10 ayahuasca journeys.
It's alcoholism is self-diagnosed.
Right.
And so it's up to the person. Each individual person gets to make the decision.
Right.
Whereas, I mean, if someone clearly is an alcoholic and everybody knows it, it doesn't matter. Like, they still have to diagnose themselves.
Right.
Or else they're never going to get the help that they need.
Yeah, you can't go to, like, Banner or Mayo and they send you with a slip saying, here, you're an alcoholic.
Right.
Go check out.
Right.
Right. You don't get that.
Right. What advice would you give to someone in recovery considering psychedelic therapy? And are there any precautions or preparations they should take?
I mean, again, I would disclose it with their sponsor, with professionals. I would do a lot of research. There's a lot of books, like How to Change Your Mind. There's a gazillion books out there and good YouTube stuff. I would go to a psychedelic conference. I would reach out to guys like you and me and Donnie and people that do psychedelics that are sober. The train has left the station.
Right.
And people that are old school, that are been sober 30, 40 years, that are like absolutely against it, those people are going to be dying off. And the new breed, there is no question that this train has left the station. And I think sobriety and 12-step recovery with psychedelics, doing it in a professional manner, I think is a beautiful combination that could heal so many people.
Right.
I know people that have been sober a long time that still commit suicide. I've sponsored 8 people that have taken their lives.
Right.
8. How many of those 8 people would still be here today if they had the psychedelic experience? I don't know.
Right.
Half, but I think more than one.
Right. Right.
And these people that passed, I mean, Ryan and David, I mean, it's so many beautiful people, were just in a moment of shame and guilt and self-deprecating thoughts and the loop, and they couldn't get out of it.
Right.
Everyone has wanted to take in their lives. I don't care who the hell you are.
Right.
And to have the help of psychedelics, we all know what that feels like.
Right.
It's like some of those people might have a great life today.
Right. There's too much evidence that supports it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I was with a guy in yoga, hot yoga, actually, and he's doing the ketamine therapy, and he was an interrogator in the Marines in Fallujah. In Iraq. And he goes, I just have so much PTSD and so much trauma, and I can't sleep, and I have flashbacks. He goes, the ketamine has saved my life.
Right.
He's not an alcoholic, but
I've heard stories like that all over the board.
Yeah.
How do you see the role of psychedelics evolving in the landscape of addiction recovery and mental health?
Well, I mean, it's that again, that train's left the station. Like, the VA is recommending it. Julie's now working with 2 national cancer centers with terminal cancer patients. They're referring them to her. And what she does is not federally legal.
Right. Right.
It's not FDA approved.
Right.
I mean, they're talking about
it's close.
They're talking about it in August. But, the reality is, there is so much evidence and there's so much, scientific proof. And ketamine's been legal for a long time, but now it's been prescribed off-label for trauma and PTSD. It's only a question of time before psilocybin and new psychedelics. So they're developing new compounds of psychedelics they're using mapping technology to come up with new synthetic psychedelics that do a specific thing, that are going through FDA trials now. So it's not a question of if, it's already in the works. And like you said, there's so much evidence now that has proven that these psychedelics move the needle, and it's not just like guessing. It's like they're doing the studies of the brain and showing, what happens. But I just read an article yesterday that the age of 20 to 27 is the highest growth of depression in the U.S.
Okay.
And it's something like 27% of ages 20 to 20, I think it was 20 to 29, maybe it was the 20s. And this was in the Wall Street Journal. It's like a real publication and with a lot of science behind it.
Right.
Said almost a third of those those population are either on SSRIs or antidepressants or are depressed. So there's got to be other alternatives besides talk therapy and SSRIs. You know, I mean, I do talk therapy, and I've been on an SSRI since I met you, 2011, when I wanted to end my life from a health scare that I had. And, you know, there's more to it than talk therapy and SSRIs.
Right.
Talk therapy, I think, could be helpful, but it also could hinder, I think, one's experience, human experience.
Right.
And SSRIs are just a Band-Aid, you know?
Right. Yeah, there's so many alternatives. So, what do you hope others take away from this podcast?
That you don't know what you don't know. You know, that's saying you don't know what you don't know. And by trying a psychedelic experience in a spiritual, professional manner, could release you from who you think you are in the life you're living. Because life is only your thoughts. That's all life is. Your reality is what you make of it, is what you're experiencing in your thoughts. That's your life. That's my life. That's everyone's life. So I can't say what it's like to be inside of Tim's brain. I don't know what it's like to be inside of Jim's brain or Frank's brain or Alex's brain. Only they know. And it's their thoughts. And they say you have 30,000 thoughts a day. So if
I think it's like 50,000.
Or maybe 50,000.
Like 50 to 60,000 thoughts.
I'm a slow learner.
Right.
But, you know, how about that there might be a modality to change how you live your life and what your reality looks like.
Right.
My reality has completely changed. You know, some for the better, some for the worse in this last 18 months.
Right.
And I can tell you that I know for a fact I would not be enjoying life today if I haven't been doing psychedelics. I'd still be in the pit, in the sadness and despair and why me, and you just really in a difficult spot. And psychedelics, like I look forward to getting out of bed every morning. I look forward to going to yoga. I look forward to coming to this podcast. And I think a big part of that is because I've unleashed the feelings and the beast and the shame in the psychedelic journeys.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. As we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners, especially those who might be skeptical about the use of psychedelics while in recovery? I
mean, I would say reach out to me. You know, you can reach me. I'll give you my phone number, 602-332-8974. I got a podcast called The Laundry List Podcast. So you can reach me up there at The Laundry List Podcast, and I'll hit you back. We have 72 episodes now, and I would say probably about 15 of them are regarding psychedelics now. And, you know, I had my son on yesterday.
Great.
And we talked about grief. We talked about feelings. We talked about him bottling up all his feelings his whole life. He developed Crohn's at 13. And I believe one of the reasons maybe he developed Crohn's is because he bottled up all his emotions and feelings. I mean, psychedelics can do more than just the mind. It's the body, too. It's your physical experience, you know. So
how old is Bond?
Bond's 22 now. He got diagnosed with Crohn's at 13.
And has he gone down the path of psychedelics?
He's tried Changa. Which, you know, is...
I don't even know what Changa is.
Changa is a smokable form of ayahuasca.
Okay.
So it's a smaller experience in duration, but it's the same experience as ayahuasca. It is ayahuasca in a smokable form. Okay. So he tried that once. He's kind of a rule follower. So I think if he is going to go down the psychedelic path, he's going to go to like an MD, ketamine, legal.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
I think that's at least he'll start is my guess, but he's open to it.
Okay, cool. Is there anything I missed? Anything that I should have asked you?
No, I think we covered a lot of it. You know, life is in the moment. You know, yesterday's yesterday, tomorrow may never come. Life happens in the moment. And again, by doing all the spiritual work, hypnotherapy, psychedelics, 12-step work, meditations, all that stuff, I think helps me live in the moment, because so much of my life has been living shame from the past and freaking out about the future. And if we have 50 or 60,000 thoughts a day, a lot of those are based in outside of where I'm at right now.
Right.
So I would say try to stay in the moment and see where you're at. Put the phone down. Look at the birds, see the sky, watch the sun, watch people walk by you, say hi, put that screen down. Gray tells me in every journey, put the screens down, put the screens down. I know that's not me because I'm a screen guy.
Right.
He's like, life happens without the screens.
Right. Do a gratitude list.
Do a gratitude list for sure.
Right. Okay, that concludes our conversation with Todd Belfer. Todd, thank you for sharing your deeply personal journey and insights into how psychedelics have offered you a new perspective on recovery and healing. To our listeners, we hope this episode has expanded your understanding of the potential roles that alternative therapies can play in the recovery process. Remember, the path to recovery is personal and varied, and it's important to approach each option with openness and careful consideration. For more stories and insights on recovery and wellness, stay tuned to I Love Being Sober. If you found today's discussion enlightening, don't forget to subscribe and share this episode. Thank you for listening, and remember, there's always hope and support on your journey to sobriety.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Todd.
Tim. Appreciate it.
If you got value from this video, if you heard what you needed to hear, be sure to like it. Comment if you've got a question or you have something to say. Subscribe to the channel. Camelback Recovery provides treatment services for people struggling with mental health, mental illness, addiction, alcoholism, whatever it may be. So if you or a loved one is struggling and you need some guidance and you need some direction, reach out to us. Our contact information is down below, or you can go to our website, camelbackrecovery.com, whether it be detox, inpatient treatment, outpatient treatment, sober living, recovery coaching, sober companion services, whatever it may be. Like I said, we can either help you or make sure that you get sent in the right direction. We help people all over the country, all over the world for that matter. I'll see you on the next video.